this is a Brivity happy hour, and it's going to be happy because we're going to talk to a friend of mine, and Jen, maybe some of your people as well. I just want to kind of read you these notes that I took while talking to Jen the other day. I had the honor of watching Jen speak to a group of people, all these individuals that are doing over $2 million a year in commission, and I heard her speak, and she said, here's what she wrote to me, or here's what I took from my notes in my conversation was, her goal was to build a team within a team, because she already worked on Dan Holt. Is that right, Jen?
That's right.
Dan Holt's team, and her goal was to build a team within a team, not to leave the team that she was on, but just to build something big without leaving. And she wanted to build it out first on the buy side. And she was good at working with buyers. She just followed the MREA model. In 2015, she closed 110 units with no showing agent, 110 as a buyer's agent herself. She added 2 showing agents the following year, and her business jumped to 182 closings in a year. And then for the last couple of years, she's consistently closed 225 buyer side transactions with 2 showing agents. And then she was promoted to the CEO of the Dan Holt team and kind of took over running the whole organization. And I think her story is impressive in general, but you guys are going to get to see a little bit of that here in a second. I think what else you should probably know is she's a hard worker. Jen, I think you have a couple kids.
I do. I've got a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Okay, are you raising them on your own?
80% of the time.
80% of the time. So she's doing a couple hundred sales a year. She's a mom of 2 great kids. She's raising them on her own. She's running this team, and there's no excuses. No excuses for why she isn't. And what's your average price there, Jen?
Average sales price is $180,000. So margin is very slim.
And you're in Springfield, Missouri, is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. So that's who we're going to talk to today. As you guys get questions or thoughts, type them into the chat box and we'll talk to her. And then if you want to talk to her, we'll bring you guys on in a little bit. So what we're going to start off with, Jen, is I'd just like to spend some time just kind of hear your side of the story. Like, how did you get started? What did you do? How were you able to do so much business? Let's start there. Kind of start off. Tell us your real estate story.
Sure. So I actually have not been at KW the whole time. I started at a Berkshire Hathaway company. I was a buyer's agent there for 5 years ahead of Dan recruiting me to Keller Williams. My biggest year there, I closed 16 units, all buy side, and
1.6.
1.6.
Impressive.
And I thought it was. I mean, my ego was as big as my hair, potentially, back in those days. I loved working with buyers. And then I met Dan through a mutual friend, and he started recruiting me. And I came over to KW, and it was really the first time that someone sat down with me and explained to me how to run a business like a business instead of like a real estate agent. And so Dan is, I give him a ton of credit because he sat down and talked with me as though the buyer agent role was not a less than role. So it wasn't less than the rainmaker on the team. I could build a team within a team, and I don't know that either of us really knew how I was going to do it. So I met with him. The goal for the first year was for me to close 50 properties. Keep in mind, I was at 16, so I am a people pleaser. And so I was like, okay, yeah, seems like a good idea. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we'll figure it out. And I will say I am coachable. I am open to learning new things. I like to learn from other people. And so my first answer is never a no. My first answer is never, that can't be done, not in my market, all of the list of other excuses that there can sometimes be. So Dan and I sat down and we worked out a plan for the first year. And I ended up closing 49 properties. And had I known or been tracking numbers that closely, then, I probably would have bought a house to have actually hit a goal. And it was hard. The 49 properties that year was really hard. My kids were much smaller then. And it was a struggle to find balance. So I knew that I wanted to grow, and I didn't really know how. The capacity meter, I didn't really have much more capacity. So we started building out the MREA on the buy side. So I think a lot of buyers agents look at it and they're at, that 35 to 50 unit mark, and they're like, that's it. That's all I can do. And that's not how we looked at it. We looked at it and we thought, well, if on the listing side you can add great admin support, what would that look like on the buy side? What if I also get to be in my top 20% and it's not just Dan in his top 20%? So we added admin, and I jumped up to 72 units, and I'll fast forward a little bit, and jumped up to 72 units. And then we were like, okay, now what? I've got admin support, and we still, now I'm at a different ceiling. And so we added help with lead generation. We added someone to help with building out a pipeline, nurturing leads, getting people to the point of when they're 45 days out. And so we added that piece. I added a coach at the same time that could, really shine a flashlight in all aspects of my side of the business. Because at this point, Dan is intelligent, and he was like, I've never done this on the buy side. I don't know where you go from here. Let's bring somebody in from outside of our area to help you. So I added coaching, we added lead generation, and I jumped up that year to the 110. And I was really happy there. I was working 2 nights a week. I was working one day of the weekend, and I had a lot of quality of life back. And I liked being the face of it, right? I enjoyed showing. I enjoyed making friends with people and, getting to know their families. And what happened was at that time that I became the ceiling for our lead generation team, because I'm only one person and I only have, one calendar and only so much availability. And so at that point, we were like, what do we do? There had been talk of showing agents. There had been talk of, having, people maybe paying per door and those types of things. So we decided to try it, and that's when we tried it. And so, when I go through the numbers quickly, it seems like it was easy. And what I will tell you, it was hard. It was hard, and I had to make decisions. And there are decisions looking back, I'm like, gosh, if I would have done that different, how much easier would things have been? Or if I would have, done this sooner, how much easier would things have been? So when I look back on it, I can kind of give a rhythm of what the story was or what those numbers were. And I can be honest and say, by the time we got to 225 units, my life was easier than it was at 50 units, because I had really good people in place. And that has continued. I've had so much opportunity because of the people that are in our organization that have helped me out.
And are they on the call with us today?
I think Monica's on here. I don't see her, but I don't know if Ashton is on here also.
Okay, cool.
I'm here, Jen.
Oh, thank heavens. There's a friendly face. That's Monica. She's our director of ops.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for joining us. And to the rest of you, Jen said your faces are not friendly. Just pointing that out right now.
Well, everyone's not a lot of smiles. Brindley's smiling a little bit.
Oh, now they're all smiling at you.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, that's good. So where was your business coming from? How were you finding those customers? Sphere, opens, listing leads, internet leads? Where were they coming from?
There's been an evolution. We were very much in a hunt and gather mentality at the beginning, because Dan was pretty new to the business. When I joined his team, I think he'd only been in business maybe 2 or 3 years. So at the beginning, it was a lot of listing leads. 20% of my business then and now are Google Voice calls or sign calls, so listing leads. And we did open houses, and we called, on the listing side, we called for sale by owners and expireds. And we've been in that mentality until about 3 years ago. And finally we were like, we've we're turning and burning people, right? We're looking at unit count instead of at families. And so we made some adjustments and really focused in with the help of Monica on really diving into what our database looks like and what our past clients are, and trying to build some of those relationships, and honestly, some of them rebuilding relationships. And so now I think, Monica, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're at about 35-40% repeat referral business.
Yeah, it's continuing to climb.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, as long as both of those numbers continue to climb, that's good. You would hate for your by referral to get up and your total numbers to drop or to stay the same, because then you realize you're not bringing any fresh new people into your world.
That's right. And I think the goal has been, how do we make sure that 50% of our business is, as close to 50% is new business, so that we are growing. We've had a couple of years, in the past couple of years, where we've done rebuilding years, where we've brought in new talent, we've brought in new leadership team, that type of thing. And now the focus is really on a healthy, robust business, new leads and past client database.
So walk us through, because some people have never considered having a showing agent in their world. So walk us through, like, what do you consider your job to be as the role of the lead buyer's agent or the buyer's agent? And what do you consider the role of the showing agent, if you could divide that out for us? Sure.
So a showing agent is not a door opener. That is also not a less than role. So just like a buyer agent is not a less than role to a listing agent, a showing agent isn't a less than role. So they are the leverage of the relationship. So they are meeting the client, they are showing properties, and they are getting the buyer to the point of writing a contract. They are not lead generators, they are lead nurturers. So they are taking buyers that are 30 to 45 days out, they are building that relationship, and they are forward pacing them through the pipeline. What I mean by forward pacing is, they're getting a 30-day buyer in as quickly as possible into as few of homes as possible. So we try to nail down that criteria. The lead buyer agent role, what we're doing is we are still lead generating, to a certain extent. I lead generate more for talent, maybe for the team, than I do anymore for buyers. And I think Ashton, if she's on the call, would say I'll still always jump in and dial. She's our director of lead gen. But the lead buyer specialist, we've got the pipeline, right? We've brought people into our world. We've told them that we can have a business that sustains them and that sustains their family. So the lead buyer's agent has a big enough pipeline that this person can come in and thrive. So we're doing consults and we're handling negotiations. So we're negotiating the contract and the inspection period.
So what I hear, I like that comment you just made. The lead buyer's agent's job is to ensure that there's enough of a pipeline to support the showing agents. And in order to have a showing agent, you have to commit to filling that funnel with enough people, enough 30 to 45 day out buyers, right? That's your fiduciary duty as the leader, is to fill it up so that those agents are busy. So let's walk through the start of this, Jen. The lead generation is shared between you, an ISA, and maybe in some situations your showing agent. But in the beginning, it was just you, right?
Yep.
Who did the buyer consult?
I did the buyer consult up until 6 months ago, probably.
And did you have your showing agent sitting in there with you?
I did at the beginning during the training period. So for the first 30 days, they shadowed me on everything. And my theory was, you're just going to kind of need to keep up. If I'm working from 8 till 8, you're working from 8 till 8. And they did shadow the buyer consult. And then what happened is, once I had a second one, I never knew who was going to have availability. And I didn't want the client to meet more people than they needed to meet. So if I were meeting with a buyer, it would have just been me doing the consult, handling those questions, getting them set up. And then I would have said something like, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, in the market that we're in, I never want for you to miss an opportunity to view your perfect home. there is a chance that at some point my schedule won't match yours. Are you going to be comfortable if I send our top field agent out to meet with you at the property? I'm still going to be involved in the process. I'm still going to call you ahead of time and afterwards. And we just handled it. It was a very soft introduction. Hopefully and I would always say, I hope that I'm the one that gets to show you. And on the off chance that I can't, are you comfortable with this? 99% of the time they were fine with it. And 99% of the time they never saw me really again. So it worked.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think everybody has this big belief that their customers are only going to want to work with them. And if they get handed over to a showing agent, they're going to feel that they got pushed off to somebody else. But that wasn't your experience at all. Not
my experience. And the things that I would say to that, that's a myth. It would be no different, Ben, when you were building out your team and you were the listing agent, if you didn't feel like you could pass something to a buyer agent. There's no different. There's not a person that can't be passed. And I'm not hiring a door opener. I'm not, people will want to use the term showing assistant. I don't have those. I have showing agents. They're a fully licensed agents. They're an expert in the field, and I trust them with my relationships. So if that's the leverage piece I'm looking for, that person's going to represent me well. And I don't have this thought of, oh my heavens, I can't send Cody out or Kathleen out or Jeremiah or whoever I'm sending out with the buyer. I can't send them out because what if they mess it up? I have more faith in them than I have in myself at this point. They're excellent in role.
So good. So when somebody's out looking at homes, did you, and let's go back to the beginning a little bit, not to your fully evolved like perfection of the state of your guys' business. Did you follow up with those buyers to see if they wanted to make an offer?
So one of two things happened. The showing agent was responsible for texting me right after the showing, and I called the showing agent first. And the showing agent would give me option one, yes, they were ready to make an offer. Option two, no, they weren't. So option one, yes, they're ready to make an offer. I would call and I would say, hey, Monica, it's Jen. I'm so excited. Kathleen let me know that you guys found your perfect home today. I went ahead and ran comps for you. It looks like fair market value is between X and Y. My opinion would be in this market with the way things are moving, here's where you start the offer process. Are you comfortable with that? So I'm not asking them what they think about price. I'm bringing Kathleen's name back into it. And I'm saying, was there anything that you may have noted at the property that we need to address in our offer? Kathleen mentioned that you were a little concerned about the age of the HVAC. And we had that conversation. So I know if I need to bring in a home warranty, but I'm tying Kathleen back into it. We're a team, we're partners. So option two, they don't find the house. And I call and I say, oh gosh, Monica, I'm so sorry that I wasted your and Tony's time today. I understand that you went out with Kathleen. You all looked at 3 homes. One of them didn't fit, none of these fit. I'm curious, what did I miss during our consult? Because I was convinced that you were going to put in an offer at 123 Main Street. It was everything that I thought you wanted. Can we just run back through it? Because I want to make sure to honor your time.
I've seen so many agents take that showing agent and say, here's a client, and then they walk away, and then they're frustrated if that person never closes. But you're a part of that process. Like, you're describing them as your partner. You're not just giving them the deal like maybe you would with a buyer's agent. And I think that's what creates such a high level of conversion and such a high level of closings. How many showings on average do your buyers look at before they write an offer?
2 to 3.
2 to 3 properties total, or 2 to 3 showing appointments?
2 to 3 properties total.
You guys hear that? Jacqueline, they're not driving around for the next 7 months of every 474 homes that are currently on the market, right? It's 2 or 3. Now, how do you explain that to somebody? I want to see everything, Jen.
I completely understand that you want to see everything. And there's never going to be a time where I'm going to try and talk you into buying something that you don't love. What I know, though, is during the consult, if I ask you enough questions and I 100% understand what you're after, there are really probably only 2 to 3 properties that are really going to fit what it is that you're after, that meet your needs and what you're excited about. So in the event that we get to the end of the 2 to 3 homes and you've not found a home, do I have your permission to run back through the search criteria so I can see maybe what I missed.
That's so good and so true.
And
When I did that, you're absolutely right. What we're actually going to see is we're going to see about 300, because I'm going to take about 300 homes and I'm going to whittle that down all the way down to about 20 or 30 that I'm going to send you and we're going to preview. And we're going to reduce that all the way down to 3 to 5 properties. And we're going to pick the best 2 to 3 of that list that we want to go see. And statistically speaking, you're going to buy one of those 3. Kind of similar to your message.
That's exactly right. And we talk about the market. If you want to see 10 houses, by the time I'm going to pick the first 3 that are the best ones. We go look at houses 4 through 10. You've lost out on house 1, 2, and 3. And my biggest fear in our relationship is that you get stuck with a second choice house.
So good. So are you involved in the offer writing?
We have an admin that writes the offer. So and I'm taking myself and I'm acting as if I'm still the lead buyer agent. So, right now our agents are handling more of this than I do. When it was me and then the 2 showing agents, I got the terms of the offer, and then I gave it to one of our, to my admin to type in, fill in the blanks. And
then you're showing agent, or you would meet with those buyers and actually fill out the offer?
Oh, typically we do it through a dot loop. So, most of the time it's e-signatures. So when I first started, the year of 110, I didn't use dot loop yet. Then I wrote every one of them in person, and I met with all of them in person, which sucked.
That probably shows my age a little bit too, because I'm used to the 3 different pieces of paper, and you pull the yellow, the pink, and the white copy of it, right? Yeah. So who sits at inspections or appraisals?
Well, so this is going to vary state by state. We do not have to have an agent present for the inspection if the buyer is not there. So we set the expectation early with the buyer, and we say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the most nerve-wracking time is going to be your inspection period, right? This is going to be, if you're going to have buyer's remorse, this is going to be when it's going to happen. And as important as me negotiating a good price for you is me negotiating your inspection. I need the inspector to be able to do his job. So you are more than welcome to go to the inspection. What we suggest you do is go the last 10 to 15 minutes so that you can meet with the inspector. He can go over the highlights with you, and you guys can just kind of talk through it there at the property, and then we're gonna get a report at the same time. So what we're doing is we're not sitting in an inspection for 3 hours. We don't have that kind of time. That will vary state by state. So you guys need to figure out what works for you and for your market. However, here, as long as the buyer is not present, the agent doesn't have to be there.
Okay. And at closing, do your showing agents or you go to closing, or do you guys not?
Showing agents go. Typically, if I'm going, if it's when I was really ahead of showing agents, I would go and I would give the closing gift, and I would say to the buyers, I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, there's a lot of personal financial information that comes out in these closings. So I'm going to be available by phone if you need anything. I just wanted to say hi, make sure you guys had your keys, see if you had any additional questions for me. I'll be available if you need anything, but from here moving forward, Jamie, our closer, is going to take great care of you. So then I stepped out and I didn't sit there for the closing.
That's awesome. How are the showing agents compensated in your guys' model?
So in our model, the original model, now it is morphed because we've got people that have tiered up and handle some more things. But the basic of it was we pay a base salary. So base salary plus commission. The commission is 12.5% off the top of the 3%. So that the base salary was $18,000. And so it's not a lot. And the reason that we came to that was we looked at median income in our area. So this would be local specific. And if your median income is super high, you might look at what a college graduate would make in their first year and base it off of that. So our median income is $35,000. So we did roughly half of that as a base salary. And then I knew what my pipeline was. So we referenced pipeline earlier about how big does it need to be. I knew without hesitation that bringing somebody in, they could close at minimum of 5 deals per month. And so when I built out, I was pitching the opportunity. I brought people in from outside of industry. So we were pitching opportunity and not really splits. I mean, if I'm being honest, we were showing them what they could do and where they could go. If they closed 5 homes a month plus the $18,000 a year, it was going to be roughly $50,000 for their first year. The interesting thing is they all sold more in their first year. Their average sales price, the way that I initially had based it, I based it a little bit less than what the market actually showed us, on the off chance that, it was different. And what happened was, in the first year, they sold more houses and they made more money. So, our longest running showing agent, I think her first year, I want to say made $62,000, then jumped up between 70 and 80 and is over 6 figures at this point.
And that's net income for them too. They don't have any business expenses, right? They have all this other leverage. Like, the money they get is the money they get.
The money they get is the money they get.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to let some other people ask some questions, but not quite yet. When COVID happened, things changed in your business. And one of the things in hearing your story that stood out to me is you didn't go bury your head in the sand. You didn't put all the pressure on all your people. How did you respond personally when the crisis happened? What'd you do?
So really, about 10 days before Springfield was shut down, our leadership team, Monica, Shanna, and Ashton, I was out of town, and they sent everybody home. It was production first. They went home first, and then we phased everybody else, towards working from home. And so by the time everybody else was in the stay-at-home place, and they were just learning how to do it, we had a 2-week jump start because I have really, really smart people that work with me. I got back into town and I hit the phones. So I felt a lot of anxiety around kind of this non-productive space that I was in. And we've talked a lot about on our team, when production is high, anxiety is low, right? Brindley, it's the spin on the when drama is high, production is low.
So say it again, Jen.
When production is high, anxiety is low. So when we look at this, and I thought, okay, how do I get into production faster? It was making phone calls, and it was calling my sphere, and it was making care calls and checking on people. And Shanna, who's our director of sales, got she got new standards in place for our salespeople, and they went from lead nurturers to lead generators, and we made that adjustment on a dime. And Monica got her admin team to make adjustments, and they're still pushing for reviews, and they're calling our current clients, and they're buttoning up the contracts. And Ashton, our director of lead gen, they're calling our database. They're making these care calls, and we're matching the market. We're matching the market with our message, right? So it's one of the shift tactics is you're making sure that your message matches what's going on. And so none of us slowed down. We had plans in place. If it all went to hell in a handbasket. If this happens, this happens. If we drop to this number of under contracts, here's what we have to cut. And if we drop to this number, then we have to talk about some people, and on and on and on. And we had a PACE plan, so primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So we just jumped in, and I will tell you, Monica can attest to it, I probably have had my biggest production month in a year and a half. And our average sales price I mentioned on the call was $180,000, and I think my average sales price right now is like $380,000.
Give me an example of what your production is like right now personally, just for a week or two, or just give us an idea.
I think in May I put 10 or 12 under contract.
Personally, after not being in lead generation and gone, you jumped right back in and put 10 or 12 yourself.
Yep. So in the lead generation, that was from the 30 days prior. So, that it took me 30 days of lead generating for everything to come around. And so it was all past clients and sphere. I took maybe one team lead because nobody else was available to go.
Yeah. Why do you think, like, you're the CEO of the whole team, why do you think that's your job? Aren't you a little too good to lead generate and call leads and do that stuff?
No, I think it gives validity with the team. I think that I can handle script practicing better if I know what the scripts actually need to be. I think Gary talked about it in a mastermind about tasting the water. What are the leads actually like? What does this feel like? What does this sound like? And so I think it gave me validity with the team. I think it helped curb some of my nerves around what was going on, and it made me feel like I was in control in a really chaotic situation.
I see. It's what a leader does. Like, the leader's job in chaos, as I keep saying on these calls, is to paint your face blue, go in front of your crowd, grab your sword and shield, and run forward, yelling, "Follow me, we got this." Like, that is the leader's job, is to become this Braveheart individual. Sarah Reynolds, massive producer. Jen, you guys are massive producers. Both of you went and got on the phone and got in front of your people. That's exactly what you should be doing during these times.
And I think it's not. I'm being honest about it. I've had hard days. I've had days where I was like, "Holy crap, what just happened?" And I have a team of incredible people that are like, "It's fine. We've got it. What do you need?" This morning Monica brings me in a Coke Zero with a splash of vanilla in it to get me through the showings that I had set up for myself for today. And I think that's the thing is, we had spent a year rebuilding this culture that had been not the best. And we've spent a year rebuilding it. And I will say that the team that I have right now, that they're not going to let the funk in. And I think that's the thing is I finally have a group of people that I genuinely like being around, and that we're all driven towards the same goal. We're all headed the right path. And when one of us starts to fall off, then somebody comes and grabs them and kind of brings it back together. And so, I think we need to understand right now during this time, we've got to give some grace. We've got to understand that people have a lot going on in their personal lives, and we don't want it to bleed over to professional lives, and sometimes it does. So I think, the lesson that I've learned through all of this is some of my people have better ideas than I have, and to give grace when they're having a bad day, because they're going to give me grace when I'm having a bad day.
Let's dive back into your compensation for your team real quick. Okay. There's a couple of questions. I'm watching chat here.
I'm not watching it. Should I be watching it?
That's my job, Jen. I'm handling this one for you. You just stay with us.
Thanks.
If the showing agent gets 12.5%, how much does the buyer's agent get?
So when we first built it out, it was the 18,000 came from me as a buyer's agent, and Dan and I split the 12.5%. So
Okay.
Dan was the company, and that is not normal or traditional, nor should anyone expect that. I put up a little bit of a fight ahead of the showing agent because, again, I really liked buyers and I really wanted to handle all of them myself. So he did handle that split with me, and that is not traditional. So normally, I think on average, industry standard is a 10% commission. However, our commission is so low that I needed to give a little bit of an extra bump. So normally that 10% would come off of the buyer agent side, and you'd go from 50% to 40% or 40% to 30%.
So your buyer's agent, we'll draw it out real quick. The team gets what percentage of the commission every time?
Now or when I started this?
Either one, we can do both.
Now the team gets 50%.
Okay. The remaining 50% gets divided up how?
The remaining 10% is our budget for ops, 10% is our budget for lead generation.
Oh, no, you're looking at the team side. The other side, the buyer's agent and showing agent side.
Okay, sorry. So if I'm looking at a buyer's agent, our top buyer's agent gets 30%.
Okay, 30% plus the showing agent is getting 12.5%.
Yes.
And then
And if they don't use the showing agent, then there's just 30% spent.
Okay. And then who's getting the other 7.5%?
It's bonuses for the lead gen team.
ISAs.
Yeah.
Okay. Jacqueline, does that clarify that equation a little bit?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. What would you change about that? Like, you have a unique situation being that your average price point is 180. And you have to do something different. Whereas Joey, you're in Southern California. If your average price was 750 or $1 million, you could do something entirely different, right? Yeah. Okay, so I've set the stage. I painted the picture of Jen and her team, and now I want you guys to talk. Who has a great question for Jen or Monica or anybody that's in their world?
I do.
Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi. I have a couple questions. So you mentioned that because your price point is what it is, do you feel that if it was higher, you wouldn't have to offer that salary? Is that why you're offering the salary?
No, the reason I wanted to offer the salary is I wanted to control the cost of the sale. I also was bringing in somebody from outside of industry, and I wanted their focus to be on the client care, not necessarily where they were going to pay their rent from. So that for me was a big piece of the personality puzzle I was looking for. When I'm looking for a showing agent, I want someone that has a really high I and a decent S&C. I don't care that much about the D, honestly, for if we're looking at a DISC assessment. And it took the edge off that first few months, and it gave some stability for months when maybe they had gone through their pipeline and they were trying to rebuild. It also gave me the ability to ask them to cover a walkthrough for me, or handle something for the company because they were part of the team. It also made them part of the team faster because they were part of my team. And they understood that the 18,000 came from me, that I wrote them that check. So it was easier to uphold some of the standards that I had.
You as the buyer's agent wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Jacqueline, I think one thing to really, for everybody to hear here that I'm picking up on is Jen was already doing 5+ deals a month. She wasn't a buyer's agent with 1 or 2 deals a month trying to say, I need a showing agent, when they should have all the time in the world. They're only doing 1 or 2 frickin' deals a month, right? That's why in our team, we've always said, do 3, 4, 5 a month on average, then get a showing agent. It's not 1 or 2. And because of that, she already knew that she had an average of 5 deals a month to pay somebody on. So mathematically, when you're doing that, you aren't starting off at 0. You're saying 5 times 12.5% plus the salary, you can do that comp, and it ends up lining up in a great pay range for that person.
And I wasn't doing it, I wasn't at 1 or 2 units a month and I wanted them to get me to 7. I was at 10 units a month and I wanted to give them 5. I was still going to do my 5. And now we had 2 more calendars for lead gen to fill up. So I think most people do it backwards. I mean, and they go, I'm busy, I'm going to get a showing agent, and then they don't have admin support. So then the agent becomes the admin, right? If I don't have admin and my showing agent's in the field, I'm pulling utilities, right? Like that's what I'm doing, which is not my most dollar productive activity. Okay, so now I've got admin in place and now I'm still busy again. And okay, now I'm going to get a showing agent. Well, I don't have that pipeline. So that's where we put lead generation in there too. So it was admin, then lead gen, and then showing agents, because we had a massive pipeline. When they came in, they walked into being able to do 5 to 7 to 8 deals a month. I didn't add the second showing agent until halfway through that first year, and it was because I got back in showings. The first year Kathleen was here in May, well, Dan took like 45 listings or something in April, and in May I sold 36 properties, myself and Kathleen, and I negotiated every one of them. And I was like, I lost quality of life again, right? I was starting to get it back, and then I lost it because our lead gen team was like, killing it, right? They're filling this bucket and they're filling this pipeline and they're popping so fast. So that's when we added that second one. And then that's when I really was able to kind of step out of the showings. But I think a lot of times people go out of order and then they don't have that pipeline. So now you've got a primary agent and a showing agent just kind of sitting around looking at each other.
Jacqueline, what else?
Well, I don't know if people want to go more into the nuts and bolts of the showing agent role itself and how you the mechanics of it all, but I want to know more about your recruiting and where are you finding your people and what are you looking for? What have you identified as your ideal candidate for this role?
For this role and every role, I think Monica would agree with me. She handles a majority of our recruiting that we're looking for sense of urgency. We have not had to hire a showing agent for a very long time. So Kathleen's now a buyer's agent, but she came in 2016. She was a personal banker at my bank. My primary lender asked us to verify a disc for her, and then basically we stole her from him. And then Cody, he came from Verizon. I think he was a top salesperson in a 5-state area for Verizon. And then Jeremiah, who's on the buy side now, he's been with the team a little bit over a year. He had been actually an agent and then got out of selling and was working for a trucking company selling space on for freight. And then we got him to come back. So we really we're not looking for agents that we're going to have to break the habit of. I like for them to come in and learn my scripts and do what Monica tells them to do when she tells them to do it.
What's the total amount of people on your team right now?
Is it 18?
Yeah, we're at 18.
Okay.
And what was your guys' closings last year total?
We closed 482 units last year. I was not in production last year, so we had 6 people in production last year.
Okay, so the rest were admin,
lead gen team. We have admin and lead gen.
Does that include Dan Holt?
Yeah, Dan was still in production and is still in production. We'll have to have 7. We'll have to count us as 7 this year because I really jumped back in.
I see. Somebody else have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please.
Hey, Jen, my name is Joey.
Hey, Joey.
So thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it. The 2 to 3 homes that you guys are averaging in showing before getting into contract, I'm curious your process of picking those. Are you setting up your clients on e-alerts? And then are you saying, hey, this week, pick your top 3? Or is there any time that the showing agent or the buyer agent is spending in making sure you pick those top 3 in that first showing? Just curious your process there.
We tried to pick him right the first time, and I will tell you, since moving out of that role, our lead gen team handles a lot of the consults, and they do a really great job of getting in front of it, figuring out the criteria, sending those listings while the people are still on the phone, or they call them back to see out of that, okay, hey, what of this works? We're also very good about when we set the expectation of 2 to 3 homes, and then that doesn't happen. That's an average. I mean, there are times we get into people for 7 or 8 houses. What happens though is we've set the expectation after 2 to 3 houses that we're going to do a regroup script, and we're going to come back to the buyer and regroup with them and say, what did we miss? How did we, how do we fix this? And what I have found is that most of the time we did not miss criteria, we missed motivation and or timeline. So we didn't take enough on those questions. So when people say buyers are liars, it's not true. That's an agent issue, not a buyer issue.
Okay, got it. Makes sense.
Can I add something to that? Hi, Jen, I'm on.
There's Ashton. Ashton's made a bunch of Legion.
Sorry, I've been on. I was going to say, just going on top of that, when you get a direct call from say Zillow or wherever you're buying leads from, if you only get that first house booked and your agents are expected to convert it, your ISAs aren't doing enough. So definitely try to dig in a little bit more. If your buyer's agents are taking the call, they should try to line it up. Jen does a really good job of taking them to the next house. One of our showing agents does an excellent job of it. Anytime there's only one house lined up, trying to find something if that house doesn't work, so that you have more time to convert that buyer. So it's not just one and done. You got to take them out and buy in with them.
Yep.
Oh, that's a great comment.
For sure.
Ashton.
Makes sense.
Ashton, will you explain what you do every day? Just explain your role a little bit for us.
I talk to a lot of people about real estate all day long.
So you're
all
in,
day.
You're in there talking to Sphere, buyer leads, sign calls, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I'm very listing driven. So I started 2 years and I was just always for listing leads. So we talk to, on average, between like 40 to 80 people a day, like my whole team does, including myself. I'm still very much in the role. And we're just trying to filter in as many leads as possible so the team has a lot of opportunity.
She outbound dials a lot. So
Canceled expireds, FSBOs, home valuation leads, Sphere, all that.
Yeah, we obviously do leverage a lot with Brivity. So it has helped us take to another level with the business for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for that plug there, Ashton. We'll take it. We'll take any Brivity plugs we can. Who else has a question for Jen or Ashton or anybody?
Hey, Jen, I have a quick question.
Hi, Chris Shook from Tacoma, Washington, everybody. Really good looking, charming, great abs. Go ahead.
Thank you, man. As far as the $18,000 for the salary, and I know this is probably state specific, what do you do with mileage or gas or any of that kind of stuff? Or liability of having them out driving around if they get in a car accident or something like that?
Honestly, that's a great question. So when they are at the lower split of the 12.5%, we actually have a team car that they take. So we have to have a corporate insurance policy on it. So it's expensive, and we are looking forward to the last person being out of that car. So we handle their gas. We don't reimburse mileage. So we handle the gas for the team car, the maintenance for it. It's not very fancy. I mean, it's just, it gets them where they're going.
And all your showing agents and Ashton, you're licensed too, I assume?
Her whole team is licensed.
So Chris, they're all covered by the brokerage's liability policy, just like any other of the 5,000 agents that are in the area that are licensed at a brokerage, just like you are and just like everybody else.
Okay.
Right? They're all Keller Williams agents because that's the brokers they're with. Yeah. Who else? Hello?
Can I ask another one? I'll ask another one.
Thanks. Other people.
It's more of I think Jacqueline, you asked a question earlier about like who, where do you recruit from and those types of things. And, my idea of this model, I've been thinking about it for quite some time and I haven't really tapped into the showing model as much as I want to. And I always think about like the Nordstrom employee, right? The guy who sells the shoes or the gal who sells the shoes at Nordstrom's and how they dress, right? They dress for success every single day. They're used to working odd hours and weekends. They're used to working, 10, 12 hours a day. And they're used to making kind of that base salary, just enough to get by, but they also make the commissions. And so, have you, and I don't know if you have a Nordstrom's in your area where you're at, but is that, when you guys are out recruiting, is that also that type of maybe clientele, or not clientele, but the recruit that you're looking for?
We don't have a Nordstrom's here. I would love to have that type of recruit. I will tell you that our team does a really good job of not burning through our agents. So, and what I mean by that is our showing agents, they're not expected to work 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So if they have a late evening, they are coming in at noon. They're alternating schedules so that we have full coverage all the time. So yes, that would be a great pool to pull from. We are setting the expectation that they're going to work nights and weekends. However, we do try to balance it out so that they have good quality of life. I do think that's what's helped with our retention. So I think that's why Kathleen stayed on for so long, is she's had some family changes in the last year or so, and we've been able to make adjustments with that. We have enough coverage, so there's not a strain on the company. That's the benefit of having two, Chris. So when you have one, you're their partner. So my first one, she was working 2 nights a week and I was working 2 nights a week, and she worked Saturday and I worked Sunday. So, until you have business for the second one, you're that person's partner so that they don't burn out.
And do you share clients amongst those two showing agents, or they own that person? So if that person said, I want to look on Sunday, that showing agent's going to figure it out?
The showing agent's going to figure it out. Ashton would help them with scripting. Potentially we would just push them off. So if it was a Friday and they wanted to see it Sunday and I'm working Saturday, we would say, you know what, I'm worried that property's not going to still be here on Sunday. Is there any way that you could take a look at it late this afternoon or sometime on Saturday? We're just scripting around it as much as we possibly can. Now, we're never going to lose a sale over a schedule. So they also know that if somebody's on vacation and somebody has to get in, I will jump in and show people for them if I need to. Our director of sales is also licensed. Shanna, she's not on here. She would also be able to jump in and cover a showing if needed.
You can tell Monica's a good director of ops because she's in the background answering all these questions behind the scenes. I'm just watching her answers come in. I thought it was so easy. Monica, you're welcome. Please, thank you.
She is great. She's the best.
Who else has a question for this phenomenal team? Well, somebody's getting brave. Jacqueline said, what's a short version of your recruiting pitch for the showing agent role?
Oh, nobody's asked me that in a long time. I have not hired it in a long time. I would say, if someone comes to work with us specifically on the buy side, we have the tools and we have the systems to get them into production their first week in the business. There's not been an agent that's come in on the buy side that has not had a closing inside of their first 30 days. So it is stable. I mean, you're gonna learn fast paced and you're gonna come out of this an expert in your field.
Do you guys do a daily script session like our teams do?
We were doing them daily and we moved it to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because we all got busy with actually all the leads that Ashton has generated. So we were doing it 3 days a week.
What's the format of it?
Ashton, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so we try to go through what common objections are. We might run through old appointments and kind of see if there was something we did wrong on the front side or something we could have done better on the back side. But a lot of it is in the moment scripting, so matching that message to the market and then seeing what we can do. Because sometimes, and you were saying it earlier, like Jen is so pro at like saying her pitch. Whenever she gets in there and it's like, I just need to record it every time. It's so smooth and it's so confident. Like that's what we all need to get to at one point. And so it's just kind of running through that sometimes, like no matter how many times you hear it, it just helps going back through it again because you're like, man, maybe I didn't deliver it as the highest level I could have. So it's finding those like holes that aren't consistent and then what we can do better next time.
So the really good thing Ashton does is she brings it together. She brings the sales team and the ISA team to do it together. So it's not just sales or just lead gen. So we are looking at this as, Ashton's the front half of the funnel. She's getting people to the point of wanting to do something with us. And then the agents are handling this backside part of it. And so we script together. She referenced it. We're making sure that the quality of the appointment being set is just as good as the quality of the conversion on the agent side. So they do a really good job of kind of working in this partnership with lead gen and production.
What percentage of your first appointments are in the office versus at a home?
Now, 0 are in the office. I would say, what do you think, Ashton? Maybe 25, 30% are in office?
Yeah, I would say, especially now, like probably closer to the 10%. We still have had a couple buyers consultation that have been via Zoom versus in office, but the majority of them, we try to get them in that first house because it's easier to kind of see what's going on with them. And then again, try to lead them to a second house if we have the option.
And then you would bring them back for a consult or they would do it on the fly at a table, something like that?
They could do it on the fly at a table.
And are they all signed in buyer loyalty agreements?
No.
Okay. Questions. Hey, Jen, what's the profitability in your business last year or whatever?
Yeah, last year we were at 39.2%.
What do you think attributes to such a high level of profitability?
We spent a year and a half getting there. We took a lot of time and we went line by line. We got very clear on numbers. with the new leadership team in place, it was easy to see all the angles of where money was going, what we were spending. I do think it really helps that we've got that low cost of sale. We've got really frugal people in our leadership positions. And when we look at the lead generating, we're willing to spend money on leads, whether it's through Brivity or we're doing some Facebook campaigns, those types of things. We're willing to spend some money there. However, the majority of our lead generation is dialing. They are outbound prospecting, expireds for sell by owners. So all of our numbers are within the amount that they should be.
So good. Anybody?
Can I talk about the buyer agency thing, why we don't sign it? Because it's going to be like a pushback later on this. We talk about it with our clients and we say most agents are going to ask you to sign this, and you just met us. And we want to prove to you with great customer service that we're going to do a great job for you. And if at any time it's not working, we would just like for you to have a conversation with us about it. A buyer agency agreement, for those of you that are very familiar with it, at any time it can be canceled. So we would rather have the handshake deal and say, I just want to help you find your next home. So we don't worry about it. And very rarely do we get burned by it. That's not a common thing that happens. I would not recommend it for everyone else. It has just worked very well for us.
I feel like you have a script for handing somebody off to your preferred lender.
My preferred lender?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ashton could do it too. She does on the phone. I do it in the field. So, we'll talk about it. Say Monica's the client. Hey, Monica, I don't know if you've been pre-qualified yet or not. She'll say yes or no. Even if it's yes and it's some, lending tree. Awesome. That's so great that you've already done your homework. However, I would just like to have you get a second opinion. What I know about some of these online places are that while their closing costs seem low, the prepaids can sometimes be really high, or vice versa. I'd like for you to talk with somebody local. That way, if there's ever an issue, there's someone that I can meet face to face and have a conversation with. You're in no way obligated to use them. However, it is just an extension of our team. I'm going to get better information faster from an agent or from a lender that I know than I am from somebody that you just meet online.
So good. Ashton, are you getting most of those people to talk to a lender before they even meet with your agents?
I would say it's 50-50. We do have those ones that we just try to turn and get them in front of them if we can't. But we do honestly try to get them to talk to the lender, but I do have the lender call them. So along with what Jen was saying of setting the expectations, just tell them to shop around. They can run the credit up several times and then it'll go into 1 on their score, but make sure they're getting the best service and the best rate. So trying ahead of time.
How do you introduce that to the customer that you're going to have a lender call them?
Well, COVID's a little bit easier right now to use, but prior to that, it's just kind of making sure that they don't have expectations met that aren't going to be there. So if you fall in love with the house today and we aren't in line to be able to put in an offer, you might miss out on it. And that would just break our hearts because our job is to service you to the best ability as possible. So we want to make sure that we set you up for the best experience. And that starts with this to make sure that we're not looking at things that are over your financial capacity and that we'll be able to really secure what you want next. So if you don't mind, I'll have them call you right after I jump off the call with you. We'll see it, and then we'll see you at 4 when we show you the house.
Wow.
So she's still forward pacing the appointment. She's still setting the appointment for 4, but the lender's calling it, 1:15.
Yeah. Travis, do you have a question?
I do, for Ashton. Ashton, what is your background and what makes your role a great fit for you?
I don't take no. I don't know. I guess that would be the main thing. I think that at the end of the day, people will get off the phone with you if they don't want what you're selling. And if they're still on the hook, there's something there. You're just not delivering it the way they want to hear it. So it's you, not them. So I just think it's going at it different directions and trying to figure it out, because there's motivation if they're calling you, or if I'm cold calling them and they stay on the phone, then there's a reason for it. So it's just finding out what they need to hear to help you get to the next step with them. I came from sales, from Expedia.
Does it bother you, Ashton, making those calls?
Do I what?
Does it bother you making those calls?
I'm so sorry, it cut out. What?
Does it bother you making the calls, the cold calls?
Oh, no. I mean, so my first year, I have to think back because I've trained several people now. My first year, it was hard, but I had a great leadership as well, and they just told me to get back on the phone, and a lot of time I had to call people back. So, and that was harder. So I'd rather get it done the first time than having to call them back and say what I needed to.
Well, what is your guys' intro script if you're cold calling a FSBO or an expired?
Okay, I love Bill Crespo. He says, hi, I'm sorry, I don't know if you can help me or not. I'm trying to reach so-and-so, and it just breaks down the barrier immediately. And so if you're an expired, I'm trying to reach this house on Main Street. Is that yours by chance? And yeah, it came off the market. Oh, well, like it was a really great property. I'm just curious, is it going to be available again? And then it goes into the next couple of questions, a discovery of, why did it not sell? What's the motivation of selling on it?
Yeah, you got 3 questions there in like the first 33 seconds, forcing to engage in that conversation. That is so good. Jen, anything you add to that?
Oh, they're great. That office, so their office is across from Monica and I, and it's very conversational. If I were going to say from outside looking in, they're very relaxed on the phone. It's very conversational. It's not very pushy. Her personality shines through, right? So she's giggling on the phone. She's bubbly. It's a very natural flow in conversation. And so I think if I were going to give a piece of advice, it would be to get comfortable having those types of conversations and understanding that you're asking to listen and not just to respond. I think that's why they handle the objections so well, is because they're listening what they actually are and then responding to that specific objection.
Last question. What do you do regularly, purposefully, to keep the type of talent that we see with Ashton and Monica?
Well, I make them sign in blood. That's what I do.
Threaten them with their lives?
Basically. I don't know. They might be able to answer that question. I feel like we have really good communication. I feel like we have, good culture on the team, but I'll let them answer it. I don't know.
We don't care what you have to say. Monica or Ashton, why do you guys stay?
I think for me, it's Dan and Jen both are so sincere, and we know that they have our backs. And I would say a few years ago, we didn't feel that way. And finally, we all decided we were willing to have the hard conversations and not take offense to those. And since we have, our worlds have changed. And so, there was a time a couple months ago, I went to Jen and I'm like, hey, have I done something to you? I feel like something's wrong. And we just had an open conversation. And that's great. Like, same thing with Ashton. I know if something's going on, I can go to her and be like, hey, I'm sure you didn't come, I'm sure you didn't mean this, but, here's where I'm at with it. And we can just openly discuss it. And it's a great feeling to know that everyone wants to win with you. And if you're having a bad day, they'll turn it around for you. And we all just truly care about one another.
So good. Ashton?
Yeah, I would say that. And then we're not limited. Dan and Jen do a really good job. They let us keep pushing them. Sometimes they don't want to, but Jen jumped back into production and she didn't want to. So she's willing to do what it takes. Dan's willing to do what it takes. And so along with that, they give us the opportunity to continue doing what we want to. So why do we need to leave if we can keep making our dreams work here?
Yeah.
They also do whatever it takes. So, that's part of it. I think sometimes I'm willing to jump back in because I see the crap that they're dealing with. And I'm like, well, if they can do that, I can go show 5 houses or 3 houses and then 2 to somebody else. It'll be fine.
I think that it goes without saying that this is one of the better calls we've had with another agent that we've ever hosted at Brivity. I think you guys are so well spoken and your results speak for yourselves, and how you guys treat each other and care about each other and all that kind of stuff. I'm humbled that you guys would give up your evening to hang out with all of us Brivity customers. And thank you. I don't know what else to say, but thank you guys. It was a really awesome call.
Thank you. I feel like we won that.
You completely won the COVID break here. So everybody, thanks for joining us. Really great call. We'll see you all on Friday at the Lunch and Learn. Appreciate you.